Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jen's Den Art. This is Jen, and we are painting today with acrylics, and we are going to paint what did I call this? I called it something. A, um, a collection of a pumpkin collection. So let's call it a pumpkin collection. What do you think? I think that's a good name for it. So this is what we're going to do first. We're just going to get right down and dirty. I am going to show you, I'm going to have a bunch of pumpkins here. Here's going to be one, and then I'm going to have another one coming off of the page right here. We're gonna make all of these pumpkins just kind of fall on top of each other. We're gonna have one there. I'm gonna have another one here, maybe a small one. And then we're gonna have another one way up here. So I'm basically just making like some hearts for each one of these pumpkins. And that kind of gives me an idea of where I'm going with this. All right, so what are the colors we're going to be using on here today? I am a folk art lover, so I'm going to show you some options with folk art. I also use a lot of heavy body acrylics, your Liquitex or your golden or things like that. But we're just going to start today with some folk art paint, if I can get them out of the bottle. And I love mixing colors together. So that's the first thing we're going to do. The two colors that I'm mixing together right now are Villa Green and Sky Blue from Folk Art. Villa Green and Sky Blue. So let me grab a palette knife here, and I'm going to start mixing these two together. And this is going to be the beginning of my background. So I'm going to mix these two. I'm trying to make like a muted blue color, blue-green. Okay, so I really like that color. So I'm going to take this palette knife, and I'm working on a 10 by 10, by the way. I'm going to take this palette knife, and I am going to put all of this color on here. And I'm even going to do the sides because I don't want to forget about my sides. My pumpkins are actually going to be going off of the canvas. So I'm going to make sure that I make my pumpkins, wrap around the canvas as well. This is a 1.5 inch thick canvas. So it will do great to add that wraparound area as well. So let's do up here. I'm just using a palette knife, and I'm just spreading it out just like you would butter on a piece of bread. That's all I'm doing. So let's cover all of this up. Just go on this side, just enough. Oh, that was pretty good. And just enough paint on my palette there. Okay. If you don't like using the palette knife, you can always use the paintbrush, because what I'm getting ready to do is I'm actually going to take the paintbrush and just kind of smooth some areas out. So let me grab a paintbrush, just a regular flat brush, and I'm just going to kind of smooth some of that in. Just so, actually, I'm only doing it for it to dry faster, because I don't want to be sitting here all day waiting for it to dry. And I have some more coats to put on top, so it's just easier like that. All right. Good deal. Okay, I'm going to clean that paintbrush off. All right, so the next layer is going to be some white. So I'm going to grab this titanium white heavy body, put a little bit of that on my palette, and I'm going to go back to the palette knife, and I'm going to grab the white, and I'm going to do the same thing I just did, but now I'm going to do it with the white, and I'm going to do it a lot less. So my pressure on my palette knife is hardly nothing. I'm hardly even pressing at all. And it's going to give it a beautiful background here. See how it's making those almost like some little bubbles are coming out from the palette knife. And that's just because I'm just not pressing hard, and some of the paint is making it to the canvas and some of it is not. So I'm going like really, really light, and I'm going to do that on the sides as well. And on this side. Okay, so there we go. Not hard at all. Very, very simple. All right, now comes the fun part. I'm going to take a palette knife. Let me see if I can find the one I like to use. Yep, here it is. Okay, so this is a rounded edge palette knife here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with the pumpkins in the back, and I'm going to work myself from the back, front. I'm going to put another one in the front and another one in the front, and so forth and so on. So the first pumpkin that I'm doing is an orange pumpkin. This color that I have, you see, this is one of the reasons I don't like deco art. Spiced pumpkin, which it's a pretty color, but the paint is not the consistency that I need. So I'm going to grab, well, this is another deco art, so I don't think I bought any other kind. So the deco art is really thin. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some medium to the paint to make it thicker. And I should have it right here. Yeah, here it is. It's called Thickening Gel. It's from Liquitex, and it is a thickening gel. So I'm going to grab me a little bit of that, and I'm going to mix it in that orange paint to make it thicker. Okay, now this orange is extremely dark. I do not want my orange to be that dark for this painting. I want it to be more of a muted orange. So I'm going to add some white. I love this consistency. It's almost like peanut butter once you put that gel in there, that gel medium. Okay, and I'll tell you again, it's a gel additive. It is called Liquitex Liquithick Thickening Gel, and it works amazing. Okay, so there we go. We've got our consistency that we want. Now the color is still a little bit too orange. I want it to be a little bit more muted, but the white is not giving me the muted color I want. I want it to be more of like a burnt orange. So I'm adding a little bit of, it's called Born Wood, a little bit of a brown, and I'm going to mix that in there. Again, it's called Born Wood from Folk Art. Okay, so when I mix that in there, it makes this beautiful kind of like a muted orange that has a little bit of a brown texture or a brown color to it. Okay, so watch what I'm doing. I'm taking my palette knife, I'm filling it up on the back with this palette, okay? And then I'm coming over here and I'm going to make a heart. I'm going to make 1 and 2. And then I'm going to grab some more, and then I'm going to go 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. And look at that. I just made a pumpkin. All right, now let's go a little bit further down with that. I didn't go quite far enough down. So I'm going to grab the rest of my paint and I'm going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Let's grab a little bit more paint. And 6. Okay. So every time you make one of these, it's like one of the veins or one of the muscles of the pumpkin, if you want to call it that. All right, so you can see that we have a lot of texture on our painting here, which is what I love. Y'all know I love texture. Okay, so now we're going to do this with our second pumpkin. And our second pumpkin is only going to be white, and it's going to go right here. So I'm going to go 1 and 2, and I'm grabbing a lot of white paint, and 3 and 4. Now look at that. I have a little bit of orange in here, but you know what? How much fun is that if I have a little bit of orange in my white? I think that'll look good. So there we go. Now let me kind of smooth. Oops, I just put my hand in the wet paint there. I'm going to smooth this out again. 1 and 2. Oops, I have a little bit of. And 3 and 4. I have something on the palette knife that's making it do that. I don't know what it is. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And I like it. Okay, so I'm going to stop there with that one. I think we're doing a pretty good job. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and make an aqua blue one in the middle. But this aqua blue one is going to be a little bit darker than the first blue that I put. So this is a really pretty color. It's called Greenscape. And I am going to add just a little bit of white to that. I'm going to add just a little bit of white just to make it a little bit less, because it's pretty dark. Okay. All right, and the consistency is a little watery, so I'm going to take just a little scoop of this. Look how little, just very, very little. And I'm going to mix it up in this paint to give it a thicker consistency. There we go. All right, and let me make it a little more blue. So I'm going to add a touch of sky blue to it. Maybe, if I can get it to come out. Okay, there we go. A touch of sky blue. And I'm going to mix that up in there. Okay, I really like that color. Coming along well. Let's clean that off so I don't leave a mess everywhere. And I'm going to scoop in some of this beautiful greenscape color. And right here in the middle, I'm going to go 1 and 2 and 3. I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller. And 4 and 5 and 6. And let me just spread this. I'm going to press a little bit harder. I'm going to spread it to come down just a little bit more and reshape it. Okay. So far, so good. Get me another paper towel. Clean that one off. And now I'm going to make another white one. So I'm going to put my paint. Give me a good bit of white. And this one's going to go off of the canvas. I'm going to scoop my white up And I'm just going to make a really big white one right here. And it's okay if it covers the blue one. I actually want it to cover the blue one just a little bit to give it some fun. All right, and there we go. Now let me shape it a little better. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to make the middle kind of go like that. All right. And this last pumpkin over here is actually going to be a beautiful beige color. So I have this born wood, and I'm going to use that, but I'm going to add just a little bit of thickening gel to it, and I'm going to add some white because I don't want it to be quite as dark as it is. And so I put the barn wood on top of the white that I already had down there, and it's a beautiful color. It's almost like a grayish beige. And I'm going to add just a tad bit of white. And these colors are absolutely gorgeous. Can you see how pretty these colors are? I love them. All right, so let's mix that up again. Very pretty. All right, perfect. Clean off my palette knife so it doesn't dry up. And then let's make a big pumpkin right here. So this one's going to go 1 and 2. I could probably go even lighter than this. And 3 and 4. Now don't worry about those areas we didn't touch yet because we are not done with this yet. Okay, perfect. Just enough paint to do what I wanted to do. Shape them out. Now let me get a little bit of these sides with the rest of the paint. Might have to make just a little bit more for that. Okay, so here comes the fun part. I am going to take a paintbrush. Now I don't need the thickening gel anymore. I'm done with that. So I'm going to cover that up, put that aside. And I'm going to take a very small liner brush, and I am going to use raw umber, which is a really, really dark chocolate brown, almost on the black side. And I'm going to grab this burnt umber, and I'm going to start making some vines. Just a bunch of vines. And this is going to start making things pop. Basically just making some lines, okay? Don't let me confuse you here. All right. And then I'm also going to go back in with that burnt umber, and I'm going to make my stems. And basically I'm just taking the burnt umber on the back of my palette, and I'm going to go from the center and just kind of pull like that. And go to pull like that. Pull. Pull. Make them any way you want. Sorry about my squeaky chair. Gonna have to get that fixed. All right, so that's where we're going with our stems. Now, we're gonna take our stems and we're gonna pull them down into the pumpkins. So I'm gonna take a paintbrush to do this, just like a regular, like a round brush. And I'm not even gonna wet it or anything, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the end of the paintbrush. Now this paint is all still extremely, extremely wet, okay? And because it's so wet, the paint's moving. See how the paint's moving? All right, so I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna pull, kind of on those little veins. So I'm basically just pulling. Hardly touching my canvas because I don't want it to go through the paint. I just want it to kind of glide on the top. Okay. All right, and then I'm going to come back with some more of that burnt umber, and I'm just going to kind of, well, I'm going to have to let it dry a little bit, but I'm going to make all around the tip top, I'm going to make it dark again. All of this right here, but I have to let it dry first. So I'm going to let it dry some, and then I'm going to come back and fix that. All right, so let's clean our paintbrush off. And I'm going to come back again with some green now. Now, the green is going to be very, 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 very muted. I'm going to start with an alfalfa, but I am not going to use the alfalfa. Alfalfa is kind of like really, it's a really dark green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix some brown in it, which is this, I'm actually going to use, instead of the barnwood, I'm going to use this one, which is like a cream color. It's a linen, I think. Yeah, it's called linen. And it's going to mute down that green. It's not just going to make it a pastel-y green. It's going to mute it down more like what I want. You can see already what it's doing. And I'm going to add a little bit of the brown, or you can do black if you have black hanging around. So basically I'm just kind of wanting to make it more of a grayish tone. It's a little bit too green right now. I want to go more of a grayish. So let me get my black. Here's a black that I have hanging around. It's just a deco art, and it's really runny, but I think just a little tap of black like that will really do it a lot. Yeah. Okay, so it's kind of adding like a greenish, olivey tone to it. I'm going to add just a little bit of white because I want it to be a little bit lighter. Because you see, my color scheme is really, really light, and so I want to keep it that way. And know that when your paint's dry, they end up being a lot darker than you thought they were going to be. So keep that in mind when you're making this. Okay, so I'm going to take this green. I'm going to take my round brush, and I'm going to start making me some little leaves. Now remember, my paint is extremely wet. So I'm working wet on wet here. Which if you don't like to work wet on wet, then just let it dry in between your layers. I want to make one going right here. And I'm going to make a leaf. And I'm going to make another leaf. And another one. I'm putting some leaves going off the sides. Okay, and then I'm going to come back with some more brown. Just little bitty touches. All right, and then we're going to go back to the palette knife and we're going to grab some of these colors that we used initially, and we're going to blend them in just a little bit over some of these other pumpkins, just to kind of make the colors come out everywhere. So I'm taking this palette knife and I'm going to take the back end of the palette knife and I'm putting it in this blue color. And I want a little bit of that blue color to pop in different places on my canvas. So I'm just kind of scraping it on top there, like I am not even pressing. I'm just letting it glide on top of my canvas. And I'm just adding some of that look to the other pumpkins. Now let me grab some, just a little bit of the green and do that in a couple of places. But mainly, the main color that I want is the white. So I'm going to clean that paintbrush off, and then I'm going to grab me a little bit of white, and I'm going to use the white to do that. So I'm going to grab some white, and I'm going to come down here. And I'm going to make my pumpkins have a little bit of a white. Well, this one's already white. Okay. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my liner brush, and I'm going to grab that dark brown again, and I'm going to kind of give them a little bit of an outline. But the best way to do that is to let it dry, and you put your outline with your palette knife, and I'll show y'all how to do that as well in just a minute. And then I'm going to grab this color, which is an antique copper. And so now I'm just going to highlight a little bit of the stems with this antique copper. So I'm going to make this beautiful orangey copper color become a part of my painting. And it's a metallic, so it's going to give it a little bit of a shine once it dries. But look what that does. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to pull it down right at the base of the pumpkin. I'm going to just pull it down just a little bit. Now it's very watery. It's very runny. So it's kind of difficult to get on a palette knife. But I really like the effects of it. Okay, and then I'm going to take my liner brush again, and I'm just going to add just a little bit of fun, a little bit of swirl there, and a swirl here. Oops, I missed the swirl. And a swirl here. All right, and I'm close to being done. Now I'm going to take, just for some little touch-ups, I'm going to take a small, like just a little flat brush, and I'm going to go back to this dark brown and copper color. I'm just going to kind of pull that right at the stem of the pumpkins. Just going to kind of pull. You do not have to do this if you don't want. I'm just trying to get it a little bit more defined so you can see the stems. And I think, my friends, that's a wrap. Just a little bit more fun here. I'm just grabbing some of that copper and just adding it in. And yeah, I think I am done. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. It has been super fun, and I can't wait to see you next time. Thanks for watching.